Garinyanami, Garinyanami, Jujumobironu. Dagatin Australian Nabayagari Murmaka, Da Kolamaiki Perandangalayu, Biginumba Ikita Millen Murumba Bulkairi, Yadini Australia, Balamdiko, Gundunumbaler, Balamdiko. Gundul numbaler yang indai yan go gurundai yan go balam di go gundul numbaler balam di go gundul numbaler Bulkairi Marumba Minjanu. That's welcome to Brisbane in the language of that Turrbal people, in accordance with the customs of the collective of tribes of southeastern Queensland, for whom we are a part of. When we do the welcome to country, we do that as a blessing of the gathering in a song. I shall do that in a teensy while, but firstly I would like to extend the appreciation of that Turrbal people to the Queensland Resource Council for allowing us to be here in this capacity. There's no greater compliment you can pay an Indigenous person than to acknowledge their traditional identity within their traditional ancestral homelands. I shall now sing the blessing of the gathering.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Queensland Resources Council's Indigenous Awards for 2020. Although we meet in a slightly different way this year, the most important thing is that we're still coming together to recognise the achievements of Indigenous people. I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of Brisbane, including their elders, past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge all traditional owner partners across our broader Australian operations and the Alnith people, on whose land I usually work and live on in Weipa, Cape York, and where my family lives. It's been a difficult year for all of us. We've had to adapt to living and working amongst a global pandemic. For us at Rio Tinto, the year has been even more challenging following the devastating destruction of the Juukan Gorge in Western Australia. We made a mistake. In fact, we made a series of major mistakes, and unfortunately we have lost the trust of the Putukunti, Guruma and Pinnakuta people, and many other Indigenous and non-Indigenous people across Australia through our actions. The destructions of the rock shelters should never have happened, and we are absolutely committed to listening, learning and changing to make sure something like this never happens again. We've taken immediate actions to strengthen cultural heritage governance, controls and approvals, and have increased our focus on rebuilding and nurturing our relationships. We've also recognised that we do not have enough Indigenous people in leadership roles. We're proud to commit $50 million to attract, develop and retain Indigenous professionals into our company. Our company needs to understand better how to navigate host communities, and of course Indigenous people need to take our rightful place leading in corporate entities. We must never forget that traditional owners in Australia are the custodians of the land and will be our most enduring and long-standing partner relationships. At Rio Tinto, there are 3 C's at the heart of our leadership model: courage, curiosity and care. I feel proud to speak to you as the company's most senior Indigenous leader because I truly believe that by having the courage to say that we got it wrong, we can chart a new course and make meaningful change for all of us across the industry. By being curious and humble, we'll actually listen and learn so we can modernise our approach. And by caring for our people and partners, we can rebuild and create an equal relationship with traditional owners where we can deliver mutual objectives in real partnership. We are a proud and long-standing event partner for these awards, and I thank you all for coming together to recognise the valuable contribution of many strong and talented Indigenous people in our industry.
I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we live and work, and elders past, present and emerging. It is my pleasure to join you for the 2020 Queensland Resources Council Indigenous Awards to celebrate the outstanding contributions and achievements of First Nations Queenslanders in what has been an extraordinary year. The Palaszczuk government is focused on Queensland's economic recovery plan, Unite and Recover, and we recognise the QRC's commitment towards generating procurement, employment, training and career development opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Queenslanders. This commitment is being acknowledged by the Palaszczuk government through $100,000 to assist in the delivery of initiatives to increase Indigenous participation in the Queensland resources sector. Employment of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Queenslanders in the resources sector has more than doubled in the past decade. Through our Memorandum of Understanding, the QRC, in partnership with the Queensland Government, will continue to work to create local jobs, build workforces reflective of local community, engage Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses, and nurture respect for cultural heritage. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Queenslanders contribute to the resource sector across every touch point as traditional owners, trainees, and skilled tradespeople to mentors, leaders, executives and business owners. And we know that having those traditional owners who are connected to country, working on their country, helps all of us to better understand and respect the cultural significance of this ancient land that we all live on and work on. Our shared commitment to economic participation and career pathways will deliver even more opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Queenslanders to thrive in the resource sector, like those we're celebrating and acknowledging today. Congratulations to all the nominees and the winners.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the many lands on which we meet today, albeit virtually, and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge and pay my respects to my Woolly elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the QRC Indigenous Awards for 2020. I'm Charmaine Saltner, your MC for this year's awards, and it's an honour to be here for this 7th annual event. I would like to thank Maruchi Baramba for her wonderful welcome to country, and to Brad Welch for your welcome on behalf of Rio Tinto, QRC's event partner for the 2020 Indigenous Awards. Today we are here to acknowledge and celebrate the important contribution that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people make to the Queensland resources sector and to recognise the achievements of individuals and businesses who continue to pave the way for success. I would like to acknowledge our guest speakers, our star musician, Mr. Troy Cassadaly, QRC Chief Executive, Mr. Ian McFarlane, and directors on the QRC board, in particular, QRC President Brent Gunther. Before we progress with today's formalities, on behalf of the Queensland Resources Council, I'd like to formally thank our event sponsors. These awards would not have been possible without the generosity and continued support all year from these companies. Thank you to our event partner, Rio Tinto, to our networking and awards alumni partner, Evolution Mining, MOU Employment and Training Forum partner, TEAS, to the QMEA Student Pathways partner, Glencore, and our culture and arts partner, Anglo American. Thanks to our silver sponsors, Hastings Deering and Shell QGC, and to our bronze sponsors, Adani, APLNG, Mine Super, Q-Coal, and Ventia. Please join me in a virtual thanks to these companies for their support. I'd now like to welcome our first guest speaker for today, Dr. Jackie Huggins, Member of the Order of Australia and Fellow of the Australian Academy of the Humanities. Dr. Jackie Huggins has spent 4 decades of working across community, government and non-government arenas. Her involvement has both been in the field and on many boards. More recently, she's been the co-chair of the Eminent Panel, Working Group Path to Treaty Queensland, and is currently continuing her work as an author and historian. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome and thank you, Dr. Jackie Huggins.
Good afternoon. I'd like to firstly pay my deepest respects and acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the country that I'm on and that you are all across this state and perhaps further. Improving the situation of Aboriginal communities and Torres Strait Islander communities in Queensland and indeed everywhere only works when the institutions of society are working together and listening to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. Fiona will speak later on about the importance of listening to community. The institutions I want to talk about this afternoon are government and industry. But first, I want you to know a little bit more about where I'm coming from. I'm a Bidjara and Birigubba Juru woman from Central and North Queensland. When I was asked by the Queensland Resources Council to speak, I had to think about what it was that I wanted to say to you. What's the connection between my experience in government and industry? My professional career over the years has encompassed work at various government departments at the state and federal levels. Sometimes government does not work for Indigenous peoples. It has, after all, historically worked against us. But all government really does is set the rules. It can't hand us over the keys to our empowerment by itself. A similar story is true for industry. It too has not always worked with or for us. However, slowly but surely, the trajectory of the relationship between the resources sector and Indigenous communities has changed. Now there are partnerships with Indigenous communities, and the contribution that Indigenous people make to the resources sector is the reason that we are here. It's worth reflecting on the fact that up to 12% of Queensland resources sector companies are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples. Overall, the sector employs 4% Indigenous peoples. That's the highest level of any industry in Queensland. Similar to government, however, industry can't empower us by itself. And while it doesn't set the rules, what it can do, however, is create the wealth needed to allow communities to thrive. And while I appreciate the government has different objectives and constraints from industry, the point I want to make is that you are, in a way, different sides of the same coin. Government and industry working together can make the rules fairer and create the wealth necessary for empowerment. Everyone watching this appreciates that there is no silver bullet to all our problems. And I say our inclusively of all Australians. The outcomes for Indigenous peoples reflect willingness to go down the hard road of reconciliation and emerge a more mature community. So you're probably wondering what this looks like on the ground. Well, it's simple. As I said, there is no silver bullet. But I can tell you the key feature of approaches that don't work. That is a lack of listening, of genuine consultation and cooperation. The worst processes say they do, but actually they don't. Some processes I've been involved in that have worked because of the genuine dialogue and cooperation with traditional owners include an openness and transparency, trust and action. And if you want to know what the future looks like, it's one that builds on the progress that we've already made. And while a number of the jobs created for Indigenous peoples are fantastic, we still have a very long way to go. But whatever progress we made will need to have Indigenous people driving and leading it. And that really is what this afternoon is all about. To celebrate these wonderful people who are driving and leading change and inspiring the next generation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to make their voices heard in what our shared future will look like. I'm very pleased to have been able to impress on all of you the importance of working together, government and industry, to listen and engage respectfully with Indigenous people, and let us take the lead. Listen to these award winners this afternoon and celebrate their leadership and their success. Wadamuli, thank you.
Good afternoon. The 2020 QRC Indigenous Awards is honoured to share a special performance from renowned Australian musician and proud member of the Bundjalung Nation, Troy Casadei. Troy has released 10 studio albums throughout his 30 years of making music. He comes from a long line of storytellers. His passion for writing stories about this land and what lies at the heart of it has been a driving force in his career. Troy has earned many accolades over the years, including 37 Golden Guitars, 4 Arias, 3 APRA Song of the Year Awards, 9 Deadlies, 4 Entertainer of the Year Awards from the Country Music Association of Australia, and 2 NEMAs, the National Indigenous Music Awards. In 2017, Troy became the 50th inductee into the Australasian Roll of Renown. He has had numerous gold and platinum albums and achieved a staggering 32 #1 chart singles. I had the pleasure of meeting Troy recently and seeing him perform live. His authenticity shines through in his work, and endears him to people from all walks of life. Our industry values our relationship with all of our Indigenous stakeholders throughout Queensland, and particularly our local traditional owners. On behalf of the QRC and Anglo-American, please enjoy the special performance from Australian music legend Troy Casadei.
G'day everyone, Troy Casadei here. Welcome along to the QRC Indigenous Awards. I'm very excited to be playing a few songs for you, and to celebrate your journey, a lot of these songs hopefully will relate to you. Good luck to all the winners, and I hope you have a great night. Have you looked out from a headland on an Angary dawn, or stood in Kakadu and felt so small? Dive through the waves on Cottesloe Beach, seen the Derby stars. Then we'll sing about this country, this place as old as time. We'll sing about a land that's yours and mine. Oh, every big and little town, from the center to the sea. Come on, sing about this country with me. Have you seen the rain falling down on Uluru? Headed north to Janie Creek out of Old Mapoon. Watch the Corumba sunset melt that western sky. Then we'll sing about this country, this place as old as time. We'll sing about a land that's yours and mine. Oh, every big and little town, from the center to the sea. Come on, sing about this country with me. Yeah, sing. Oh, sing it out loud now. Can't you feel it rising up? It's our dreaming song. There's room for everyone when we sing about this country, this place as old as time. We'll sing about a land that's yours and mine. Oh, every big and little town, from the center to the sea. Come on, sing about this country with me. Come on, sing about this country with me. Yeah, sing. Oh, sing it out loud now. I want to sing a song about my mum and my grandfather. They really did a lot for breaking cycles back where I grew up in Grafton, and they had really, really good jobs on the railway. But the only way my mum could get a job on the railway was to get a referral from her dad's boss. My grandfather was a fettler, my mum wanted to be a cook. And I think the cycles that they broke in their lives were really important to getting all us kids on our way. This is a song called Trains. Hope you enjoy it. Trains, trains, they get down in your veins. That rumbling diesel sound fills my dreams. train. My granddad and his mates were fiddlers on the line. They worked the tracks right across the state. And every now and then I talk to some old railway men. They bring old granddad's stories back again. Old trains, they get down in your veins. That rumbling diesel sound fills my dreams. Oh, trains, the feeling never wanes. My long-term lifetime love affair with trains. My mother traveled far. She ran the dining car, and the rattles and the clatter and the heat. She'd work the northern train and head back south again. And sometimes I'd climb aboard and she'd take me. Yes, she would. Oh, trains, they get down in your veins. That rumbling diesel sound fills my dreams. Oh, trains, the feeling never wanes. My long-term lifetime love affair with trains. Now when my boy and I watch the locals thundering by, I know he'll sing his daddy's song one day. Trains, they get down in your veins. That rumbling diesel sound fills my dreams. Oh, trains, the feeling never wanes. My long-term lifetime love affair with trains. My long-term lifetime love affair with trains.
Thank you, Troy. It is great to have you as part of the awards this year and to have you share your reflections and journey through your music and storytelling. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to introduce our keynote speaker for today's awards ceremony, Fiona Jose, Chief Executive Officer at Cape York Partnerships. Fiona Jose is an Indigenous leader dedicated to education, reform and empowering change for Indigenous Australia. As a proud Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, Fiona's love for her family, culture and heritage shaped her career in empowering local change in Indigenous communities. Thank you, Fiona, and welcome.
I acknowledge the elders, past, present and emerging leaders from the treasured land I stand, and my elders of Cape York for the wisdom and opportunities before me. I also acknowledge the courage of our leaders from all points of our country who created and took the Uluru Statement from the heart, from our desert lands to Canberra, seeking rightful recognition and empowerment of our people. Yalada, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to make an address to you, given that this year has been a particularly challenging one for all Indigenous people affected by mining. But in choosing a reformer to address you today, you can see that the Queensland Resource Council is not shying away from these challenges, and instead they are indicating a willingness and openness to address these with Indigenous people. While there is so much to learn from the irreparable mistakes of this year, there is also immense opportunity for the mining sector to make an enormous difference, and that will be my focus today. But first, we must speak some truths. I'm of course referring to the destruction of the Juukan Caves. It shone a light on the gaping chasm between mining and traditional custodians and the lack of power Indigenous people have in protecting their land, their culture and their sovereignty, and equally evident, their capacity to participate in wealth acquired from their land. This egregious incident caused me much personal reflection. While my heart broke, my cerebral side considered the problem of consent and the way it operates in relations to the human rights of Australia's Indigenous people. In response, Rio said they wanted a relationship based on respect, transparency and mutual benefit, but this must be balanced. Herein lies the irony, or is it hypocrisy? How can there ever be balance in a relationship so inequitable where consent goes sus? This power imbalance is embedded within our economic system, reflected in our law and perpetrated by governments. The sector knows that its industry accounts for 5.2% of Australia's GDP. You are central to Australia's economy. Your industry is responsible for half the country's exports and employs over 250,000 Australians. You generate shiploads of revenue for all governments. About 60% of your mines are on rich ancestral lands. Neighbouring Indigenous communities, in contrast, are the most impoverished circumstances in our nation. The people of these lands live 20 years less than fellow Australians, are 3 times more likely to be imprisoned, inherit addiction and substance abuse from the introduction of government-sponsored canteens and passive welfare. The jobless rate in communities in my region of Cape York exceeds 70%. Nationwide, only 3% are employed by the mining sector at their doorstep of these communities. But does it have to be this way? There is no better industry to match money meeting power than mining in Australia. Your position and our agency, we can change our world. And this is on top of all the success that has already been achieved, including those significant successes being celebrated today. So let's imagine that the mining industry and Indigenous Australia partnered to deliver the most innovative and groundbreaking reforms to structural empowerment this nation has ever seen. Imagine if consent was actual. Our mobs would have the power to negotiate equity in the resources on their land. They would be at the negotiating table where their voice counts. There would be capacity building. Our children would see their mums and dads fully employed in mining services in their communities and in your mines. They would aspire to hard hats, high-vis and steel-cap boots. In our communities where there are ranger groups, the kids aspire to be rangers. Where there is a cattle industry, they aspire to be stockmen. In Hopevale, when the banana farm was thriving, they wanted to grow up to be banana farmers. Or Maddie Bowen, former NRL star. They can only be what they can only see. If they only see CDP, their aspirations is work for the dole. Since colonisation, structural disempowerment has crippled our people, and it has not changed. In May 2017, Indigenous people put a proposal to the Commonwealth Government for a voice to Parliament. The voice would be a structural mechanism to give Indigenous Australians a say on the policies and laws that affect them, guaranteed by the Constitution, protected from the seesaw of politics. The voice would be practical and substantive to enable the change we need, linking from the local level up. BHP and Rio Tinto became the first companies to endorse the National Indigenous Voice. The next 2 years will be critical in ensuring the success of this proposal, and the mining industry will have a key role to play in making this real. At the highest levels, you will need to use your pressure, your political leverage to deliver the reality. This structural change would not be window dressing for consultation or for community engagement. This is structural change for negotiating measures that will close the gap. Measures such as economic development and employment. At the root of our problems in Cape York is our complete dislocation from the economy. Here we are 50 years on from the disastrous experiment of passive welfare, and our communities are suffering shameful unemployment rates that would not be tolerated in any mainstream community. In 2008, the Australian government and Andrew Forrest attempted to address this through the Australian Employment Covenant. Together, they committed to creating 50,000 jobs for Indigenous people over a decade. More than 330 employers pledged over 60,000 jobs, but 5 years on, less than a third of placements occurred. And this is despite millions of Commonwealth government funding being paid to companies participating in the Covenant. The National Audit Office said of one of the reasons for the failure was the Australian government's reliance on the existing employment service delivery system to match workers to jobs, which we know are woefully ineffective yet still funded to the sum of $12 billion per annum. The other problem was the government's reliance on the private sector to close the gap via incentives. But as we know, no amount of incentive can compel a company to employ somebody who doesn't have the requisite skills or has a history of long-term unemployment. There's no doubt that there was plenty of goodwill and government money to job network providers and private companies. But the consequences of intergenerational passive welfare are far more complex, for which we have solutions. Earlier this year, Cape York Institute established a partnership with the Centre for Full Employment and Equity at the University of Newcastle. Working with the founder of a job guarantee concept, we recently proposed to the Prime Minister that the Australian government commit to a job guarantee, at the very least in regions most desperate. A job guarantee would provide a full-time entry-level job to all those able to work at the minimum wage. This reform would deliver $100 billion in economic benefit every year, adding 5.3% to annual GDP. It would also end our disastrous dance with passive and intergenerational welfare. It would be a substitute to passive welfare, allowing workers to earn more than double the income with guaranteed superannuation and leave entitlements. At Cape York Partnership, we have 65% Indigenous employment. Some of our entities are staffed 100% by Indigenous people. We know a job changes an individual's life, including those with mental illness, disability, addictions, and learning difficulties. Apart from the financial benefits, the dignity of work results in improved sleep, hygiene and health, respect for property, work ethic, no offending, positive social norms, confidence, and a sense of worth. On Cape York Peninsula, we know that under a job guarantee, we could create more jobs than people if supported by government and key industries like yours. Moving Indigenous Australia from welfare dependent to fully employed is the challenge of our times, and we want the mining industry to support job guarantee. The size of the challenge in Cape York is 1,450 entry-level jobs. If the Australian government and the mining industry could partner to fund them, it would transform the future of our families and our children. A guaranteed job, not necessarily within the industry, is the best financial contribution mining companies could make for their local communities. A traditional owner in Cape York said recently at an Innovators Forum, "Nothing changes if nothing changes." That is my call to you, to back change, back Indigenous-led reform, where we are negotiating our future, back the voice to Parliament, back full employment. Standing still won't get us anywhere. While we must acknowledge the past and the present, let's set our sights on the future. Let's end in reflection on the words of the great poet, William Blake. What is now proved was once only imagined. Now that may be heavy, but I also want to have a shout out to Indigenous people in this industry. those here for the awards. It is so important that there are industry awards that provide a platform for Indigenous people to thrive, to be listened to. I would say celebrate them tonight. Celebrate yourselves, your families and your communities. I would say the coming together of the industry and the Indigenous people within your workforce. Find platforms for them to have safe conversations. Listen to them. Enable them. Let them do and be the lead in these discussions with your local communities. Let's not be at all tokenistic. Let's celebrate tonight what we know of as such great contribution that Indigenous Australians have to this sector and to this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona, for your insights and for sharing your knowledge and message of empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, this now brings us to the awards presentation. First, let me recognise and thank the 2020 Awards Judging Panel. I understand the judging panel always finds it to be a very hard task to pinpoint our finalists and winners, and I believe 2020 was no exception. Thank you again to our wonderful judges for their time and contribution. Today's awards will be presented by a number of our valued event sponsors. This includes senior company representatives from Rio Tinto, Thiess, Hastings Deering, Glencore, and Evolution Mining. Thank you again to the representatives from these companies for their time, support, and contribution.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Newbury. I'm the Executive General Manager for the Australian and Pacific operations at Thiess. Today we are very pleased to sponsor the Best Company Indigenous Employment and Training Initiative Award. This award recognises companies that have developed and maintained strategies that enhance the attraction and retention of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in either the resources industry or broader economy. And this year's finalists are the Yili Yina Mundu Turnaround from Year Training Program, McMahon and Jenga Operations. The Yili Yina Mundu Training Program is aimed at filling identified skills gaps for new-to-industry Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, supporting their whole-of-person transformation into full-time employment. Currently, McMahon has 49 full-time Indigenous employees, which makes up 9% of their workforce at Byron. This initiative was developed with a view to capitalising on the work of Jenga Operations through the Tida Balaroo program, and to ensure that committed and enthusiastic individuals were captured through other pathways into long-term employment outcomes on the Byron coal mine. Breaking the barriers to belonging, Sodexo. In 2017, Sodexo's operations at Weipa and Amrun were struggling to retain local Indigenous employees across both villages in northern Queensland. As part of their Better Tomorrow 2025 plan, Sodexo commits to ensuring a diverse workforce and inclusive culture that reflects and enriches the communities that they serve. As a result of the above initiatives, in little over 3 years, Sodexo's Indigenous employment rate far exceeded the initial target of 20% and has reached an enviable rate of 39.09% as of August 2020. South 32, Cannington Indigenous Work Experience Program. Started in 2017, the Indigenous Work Experience Program was developed to make a positive difference for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the local community across a wide range of opportunities, including employment, training, and cultural awareness. Through the program, South 32 aims to improve and increase Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander representation across their workforce at Cannington and create a more inclusive and diverse workplace. And I am pleased to announce the winner is Sodexo, Breaking the Barriers to Belonging.
I would like to thank Thiess for sponsoring this award and the Queensland Resources Council for the dedication and incredible amount of work in continuing with this year's Indigenous Awards, despite COVID adversities. It's an honour to be part of this event, which is a celebration of Indigenous people and businesses' contribution to our resources industry.
I'd also like to pay my respects to the Yagara people, the traditional owners on the land we are meeting today. acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. We are fortunate enough to work for an organisation who believes a reconciled Australia is possible. Over 15 years ago, Sodexo Australia made a commitment to its role in continually striving to provide opportunities and partnerships to Indigenous peoples and communities. We are consistently supporting more than 50 different Indigenous businesses as part of our suppliers and partners list. In the last 12 months alone, we hit 39 million on Indigenous suppliers spent. On the Indigenous employment space alone, we have employed over 1,100 Indigenous Australians, providing more than $33.5 million worth of employment since our Reconciliation Action Plan journey began in 2009.
Today, I'm proud to accept this award on behalf of the Sodexo teams at Rio Tinto Aluminium's Weipa and Amrun operations. It's your hard work, creativity and passion that made a 39% overall Indigenous employment rate possible and an envious 64% rate within your grounds maintenance team. You should be very proud of the positive impact that your work has made on the lives of others. It's your efforts that bring our Sodexo values to life and make us the diverse and inclusive organisation that we are today. This award goes to all of you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy Bertram, the Deputy Chief Executive of the Queensland Resources Council, and it's my great pleasure to present the award for Best Company Indigenous Procurement Initiative. This award is sponsored by Shell QGC. It recognises companies that have developed and maintained strategies that increased Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander business participation within the resources sector supply chains or programs to support business development and capability in the broader economy. From a very worthy group of nominees, I'm pleased to announce that the winner is Wanu Banal Program, Arrow Energy. The delivery of the Wanu Banal Program provides opportunities that are not only focused on building a capable and qualified pool of Indigenous businesses capable of winning work in the CSG sector and other industries, but also to support business owners and entrepreneurs towards developing economic opportunities for the communities in which they live and work. Please join me in congratulating Arrow Energy. The award is being accepted by Arrow's Chief Executive Officer, Cecile Wake.
Thank you very much, Judy. On behalf of everyone at Arrow, I'd like to thank the QRC and the sponsor of this award, Shell Australia, for this terrific award and for their support of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. At Arrow, we're incredibly excited to receive this award, and we're proud of the achievements of the more than 130 graduates and current participants in Arrow's Wanu Banal program. Together with the rest of the resources industry, we have a responsibility to use our presence to build the resilience of regional communities, and particularly those of Australia's First Peoples. The Wanu Banal program has been running since 2013 as part of Arrow's Reconciliation Action Plan, and it's Arrow's primary vehicle for building the capacity and skills of Aboriginal and Torres Strait businesses and entrepreneurs. Through this program and our broader Indigenous development initiatives, we are genuinely committed to ensuring that they can actively participate in the gas supply chain, the incredible wealth creation opportunities of the resources industry, and the wider Australian economy. This year, Arrow has partnered with CQ University to deliver a refreshed and highly innovative new program utilising digital platforms and collaboration tools. In this extraordinary year of COVID-19, this has both enabled the program to proceed without interruption and indeed to broaden our participants. Right now, we have 28 participants in the 2020 program. They're developing new skills, exploring new opportunities, and creating a launchpad to participate in the resources sector and beyond. So once again, a huge thank you to the QRC, to Shell, and to our partner CQ University. The journey to reconciliation is long, and there remain significant gaps to close. As an industry, we need to strengthen our commitment to supporting Australia's First Peoples to unlock their full potential. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Rendell and I'm the Executive Assistant to the COO at Hastings Deering, and we are pleased today to sponsor the next award. This category is for the exceptional Indigenous business in Queensland Resources. This award category recognises exceptional achievement by an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander business supplying to the Queensland resources sector. And the nominees are DBS, nominated by Glencore Coal. Diversified Building Services Queensland Proprietary Limited, DBS was first engaged by Glencore Coal over a decade ago when the business relocated to the Central Highlands from Townsville after the global financial crisis. DBS provides a total workforce management service to the Central Queensland resource and civil sectors, including Glencore and other local miners. They specialise in construction, project management and administration, grounds maintenance, contract cleaning and other solutions, while maintaining a high level of safety. DBS have been working on town and site maintenance in Tiiri and Glencore's Oakey Creek Coal since 2012. Geared Up by Culture, nominated by Origin Energy. Origin engaged Geared Up Culture in 2015 as part of the initiative to increase our uniform spend on our integrated gas business to local and Indigenous suppliers. Geared Up Culture was introduced to Origin through its sister company, Corporate Culture, who at the time was assisting in the content and rollout of Origin's Cultural Awareness program. Geared Up Culture initially supplied high-vis protective clothing and safety footwear to Brisbane-based workers in integrated gas. Stork Coal Joint Venture, nominated by Shell QGC. Stork Coal JV are a highly valued part of Shell's QGC's supply chain, bringing attention to detail, a proactive engaged workforce, reliability, a strong safety focus and consistent delivery against schedule and cost. I am pleased to announce that the winner is DBS. Please join me in welcoming them to the podium.
Thank you, Patricia. On behalf of all of us at DBS, I'd like to humbly accept this award. I also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I feel this award is a recognition not just for our business and what we're motivated to do with Indigenous employment, but also for the importance that the resource sector plays in creating and keeping a better lifestyle for Indigenous Australians. Growing up, I know how hard it was for our mobs to get and keep jobs. We may not have helped ourselves sometimes, but it was opportunities that was often lacking to get ourselves into steady work. When Helen and I started out with our business a long while ago, it was just the two of us. We shared a dream of building our business and enabling Indigenous men and women to work and support their families. We have a goal of having 75% of our employees as Indigenous Australians. We have a way to go, but we are on track. Together we can all make the future. For those who know myself and Helen, we don't give away jobs, you have to earn them. At DBS we are all a family and sometimes tough love is needed. We look for and employ for those with the right attitude. We can do the rest. In closing, I'd like to acknowledge and congratulate the other finalists for their great work. With the support of the mining sector, we can all make this happen together. Thank you again.
Good afternoon, my name's Brian French and it's my proud responsibility this afternoon to present on behalf of the QRC the 2020 Exceptional Indigenous Queensland Minerals and Energy Academy Student Award. Now this award recognises exceptional achievement by an Aboriginal or Torres Strait student at a QMEA school who has shown significant promise and passion for a career in the Queensland resources sector. Our finalists, Lincoln Anderson from Tech NQ. Lincoln is a proud Wagamai man, currently completing Year 12 at Tech NQ in Townsville. In 2019, he was offered a school-based apprenticeship with Townsville Engineering Industries and was awarded the Engineering Student of the Year and Indigenous Student of the Year. Lincoln knew at an early age he wanted to be a welder and was looking at a future in diesel fitting. He volunteered to help households in the 2019 Townsville floods and being involved in helping with traditional games for his elders with the Deadly Choices team. Our second finalist is Claire Biggs from Mara State High School. Claire is a proud Woolly woman, currently completing Year 12 at Mara State High School, a QMEA ambassador, participated in the Anglo Trade Camp, vice captain of the school and captain of the sporting house. Claire comes from 4 generations of miners, and her interest in a potential career within the resources sector through her traineeship with TEAS. Claire is looking forward to following her pathway in human resources and safety in the sector. Our third finalist is Emily Gullen from Nanango State High School. Emily is a proud Indigenous woman currently completing Year 12 at Nanango State High School and attended this year's QRC International Women's Day Breakfast in Brisbane. An Indigenous leader at her school, Emily has participated in a number of public forums and gave the welcome to country at weekly school parades. Emily is a volunteer firefighter. Emily has a love for Indigenous art and hospitality. And I'm very proud now to announce that the winner of the 2020 Exceptional Indigenous QMEA Student Award is Lincoln Anderson from Tech NQ.
Wow, this certainly is a surprise, and I was totally not expecting this. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land which we meet today and pay my respects to past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge the Queensland Resources Council for holding these awards here today. Thank you to my school Tech NQ for nominating me for this award, and in particular my trade support teachers for their support, assistance and guidance that they have provided me over the years. I certainly appreciate what you have done for me. Through your dedicated support, I gained employment with Townsville Engineering, so a big thank you to Terry and the team over there. Winning this award will give me the motivation to complete my apprenticeship and head bush to contribute in fulfilling the unmet demand for trade-skilled workers in rural and remote communities in further years. Of course, these awards wouldn't be possible without the ongoing sponsorship from Glencore, so a big thank you to them for sponsoring this event tonight. Lastly, I'd like to acknowledge and thank my parents and mentors for their support, allowing me to grow as a person and for the ongoing support and encouragement they have gave me. Thank you.
Indigenous Advocacy Award. This award category recognises Indigenous or non-Indigenous individuals that have demonstrated an outstanding effort to encourage, promote and advocate for increasing Indigenous participation within the resources sector. Later this afternoon, a special acknowledgement will be made of Mr Robert Toby, GMP Elder and Cultural Heritage Coordinator for Westside Corporation. Robert sadly recently passed away last year and was a tireless advocate for all Indigenous people through his work with the resources sector as well as local, state and federal governments. He aimed to benefit cultural heritage by promoting the importance of involving Indigenous people in the decision-making process of traditional land matter and ensuring that they were included and listened to. Robert's family will be joining us later this afternoon to pay tribute to his life and work. Before then, I have the pleasure of announcing the winner for the Indigenous Advocacy Award, Margarita Escartin, Social Performance Manager, QCoal. For the past 9 years, Margarita has driven QCoal's Indigenous policy and engagement strategy. She has developed industry-leading attraction and retention initiatives in partnerships with traditional owner groups. A significant outcome of these partnerships has been the 12% Indigenous participation at QCoal's Berwyn site and 14% at the Northern Hub, with 7% Indigenous staff at QCoal overall. These and other aspects of these operations are very deserving of this award. Join me in congratulating Margarita.
First, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land on which I stand today and pay my respects to the spirits of their ancients and elders past and present. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the lands to which we are virtually connected for this occasion right across Queensland. May I congratulate the other finalists in this category and acknowledge your valuable collective impacts through your work. I'm proud to be in your company. I would also like to thank the QRC, the board and sponsor companies for continuing to support this important event on the QRC calendar, which celebrates the contribution of Indigenous peoples, businesses and industry professionals to the sector. I would also like to thank the judges. I am truly humbled and honoured at being acknowledged by peers and the industry for the work I love to do. Throughout my career, I have supported many resource clients and traditional owner groups, and more recently honed my skills in the social performance space. However, I feel that it's the work I've done with the QCOL group over the last 10 years that epitomises my contribution. Working with a client over a long period of time has driven a maturity in engagement practice and strengthened internal capacity, while our Indigenous stakeholders were also able to build their capacity and vision. I am deeply grateful to Chris Wallen and his leadership team for having such faith and trust in my crazy ideas, altruism and sheer determination to make things happen. I also want to acknowledge the invaluable lessons and contribution of Uncle Colin McLennan and Irene Laird of Janga Operations and all the courageous Indigenous personnel working on Byron who have stood up to make a change in their lives, who work hard to provide for their families and communities, and who inspire me daily. I dedicate this to you all. Finally, to say the last few months has been a testing time for traditional custodians and the resource sector would be an understatement. The events in Western Australia will impact and shape future engagement in the sector, but ideally not negatively. I see this as an opportunity for collective reflection to drive organisational cultural change and deliver best practice engagement moving forward. I am confident that when we all genuinely listen, work together, commit and stay firm on our course, the contribution of Indigenous people in the sector will continue to flourish. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark Davies and on behalf of Rio Tinto I am pleased to announce the finalists for the 2020 Exceptional Indigenous Person. This award category recognises exceptional achievements by an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person working within the Queensland resource sector in any occupation or profession. I am also pleased to announce that this year we have a special twist. To recognise emerging talent among younger Indigenous people, we will also be recognising the Indigenous Rising Star in the Queensland resources sector. First though, I have the pleasure of announcing the finalists for this category. Tenille Tonga, Hastings Deering. Tenille is proud to be the first Indigenous female leading hand at Hastings Deering, leading a team of 20 diesel fitters, trades assistants and apprentices. Last year she was asked to be one of the Hastings Deering's representatives, one of the faces for our 2019 apprenticeship intake, advertising and featured in a video talking about her journey. Tenille became an apprentice diesel fitter in 2013 and a fully qualified tradesperson in 2017. She manages the highest velocity cylinder lane within the company. Secondly, Brad Welsh, Rio Tinto. Brad is Inclusion and Diversity Chairperson for the Weipa Operations and supports 40% of the employees in Weipa who are either Indigenous, female or both. Brad is the only Indigenous Operations Manager in Rio Tinto Australia and the first acting General Manager in the company's history. Over his 20-year career, Brad's leadership style is agile and able to be applied to a number of different operating environments. He is a balanced leader and industry advocate with strong cultural identity that promotes Indigenous recognition and advancement. And thirdly, Jalen Salem, Glencore Coal. In her teenage years, Jalen succumbed to drug abuse, lost her hospitality job and left her family. Her sister convinced her to undertake a new direction in the DBS Glencore Pathways program. Now Jalen has been employed by DBS for over a year. She is completing a traineeship in administration and business under a labour hire agreement with Glencore Coal. A successful Pathways program alumnus,
She works directly with the next cohort of Indigenous young people who are also trying to change the trajectory of their life. Her checkered background serves her to understand with real empathy the challenges that other Indigenous people face and is a source of hope for the participants. Jaylin is due to complete her traineeship within 12 months and aims to continue her education to advance her career in administration in the mining industry. And now for the results. In third place, Jaylin Salam, Glencore Coal. In second place, the Indigenous Rising Star for 2020, Tennille Tonga, Hastings Deering.
Thank you so much for this award. I'm shocked and humble in this moment. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the other finalists. To be recognised at this level is a fantastic achievement. Thank you to all the sponsors. Without your valued support, this brilliant showcase of Indigenous talent could not have happened. I believe these awards are beneficial to recognise Indigenous people in the resource sector. To win this award means so much to me and for my family and my tribe, the Yabira mob. Their support over the years is what has led me to stand here today. I'd like to thank everyone I work with at Hastings Deering and who have made my journey in the resource sector become far more than I've ever imagined. The training, my apprenticeship, their mentorship, their companionship and support has meant everything to me. I work in a tough workshop, leading a large team of mainly men. To be recognised amongst my peers and wave the flag for Indigenous female talent is something remarkable for me. To win this is beyond my wildest dreams. I am truly honoured to accept this award. Thank you.
And the Exceptional Indigenous Person for 2020 is Brad Welsh, Rio Tinto. Please join me in congratulating our finalists.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to the Queensland Resources Council. This is an incredible honour. This year has given me much to think about and reflect on. I've spent the last 8 years living in Weipa working for Rio Tinto's bauxite mine. I originally started in Rio Tinto 10 years ago at the North Parkes copper mine in a community and environment role. Over time, I made the transition from community and environment roles to an operational leader role about 3 years ago. Since then, I've been overseeing the mining, processing and shipping operations from Weipa's northern operations. It's been throughout the last decade that I've seen firsthand the meaningful and mutual benefits mining can bring if mining is done well. Umrun, for example, our newest mine, was developed in partnership with the Wickwaya and broader Western Cape traditional owners. Designed with a broader understanding of the cultural heritage landscape, we were able to build a mine that respected traditional owner connection to the land and efficiently maximised the resource to support the capital investment required. At the start of the year, I was excited to have an opportunity to lead the entire operation as General Manager. But in August, I stepped out of this role to temporarily relocate to Western Australia to work closely with the Putukunti, Guruma and Pinakura people. To help rebuild trust, repair our relationship and chart a different future for our company. I'm incredibly passionate about the work we do. I fundamentally believe that mining is essential to human progress and an important economic driver for our host communities. The way we work with host communities needs to change so that it's a real partnership, an equitable relationship where we share objectives and make joint decisions. To achieve this, we need to modernise. I'd like to thank my partner Rochelle and our 3 kids. By following me all around the country in different roles in Rio, you've absolutely supported every achievement I've had, and it's been our shared success, which is a fundamental difference to my achievements. I'm still proud to wear the Rio Tinto shirt and even prouder to be part of a meaningful change in our company and for the broader industry. Thank you again.
Congratulations once again to all of our winners and finalists for the 2020 QRC Indigenous Awards. Being an awards alumni myself, I understand that this kind of recognition is an acknowledgement of not only career achievements, but it is also an acknowledgement of the personal and societal barriers that we as Indigenous people have to overcome to continue to develop and progress in our careers. For me, it was an opportunity to open up conversations in my workplace and to continue to be a great role model for my kids, my nieces, my nephews, and for other Indigenous people. So well done to everyone on your awards for today. Before we close out this year's event, I'm pleased to introduce another performance from Troy Cassadaly.
It really is an amazing experience to be able to travel Australia, but everywhere I have travelled in Australia, you find a lot of uplifting people, Indigenous people who find purpose in remote areas and all over the country. And it's really wonderful to be able to get to know them, use them as role models for our kids as well. Talking about role models, this song really was something that moved me, I suppose, to write, because Charlie Perkins was the first Indigenous man to go through Sydney University and get a degree. To me, that was a big sort of a milestone in Indigenous culture, I reckon. First of all, he had to go and live in Sydney and get involved in that Western society and work out how to adapt as an Indigenous man from Alice Springs. So when I wrote this song with Paul Kelly, it made a lot of sense to actually put it together on the 50th anniversary of the Freedom Ride that they did back in 1965. So I hope you enjoy the song. It's all about Charlie Perkins, another hero of mine. Remember 1965, the story of the Freedom Ride. On a bus they rode from town to town, east to west, north to south, to get it from the horse's mouth, those true stories on the ground. On a blazing summer's day, Charlie Perkins led the way at the public pool in Moree. Step back, said the man, you can't get in. You got the wrong colored skin. We don't want no trouble here, you see. All aboard the Freedom Ride, all aboard now, step inside. All aboard the Freedom Ride. Come and join the Freedom Ride. Fight for justice, fight for pride. All aboard the Freedom Ride. But Charlie said, now that's a shame, 'cause trouble is my middle name. You know names hurt more than sticks and stones. You can try to knock us down, try to run us out of town, but look around, you'll see I'm not alone. All aboard the Freedom Ride, all aboard now, step inside. All aboard the Freedom Ride. Come and join the Freedom Ride, fight for justice, fight for pride. All aboard the Freedom Ride. All aboard. All aboard the Freedom Ride. All aboard now, step inside. All aboard the Freedom Ride. We'll always need a freedom ride. Fear and hate will never die. All aboard the Freedom Ride. All aboard the Freedom Ride. All aboard, you mom. I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. I want to say thank you very much to the QRC Indigenous Awards for allowing me to come along and play for you here. I'm actually playing in a little stage back at my house, and it's pretty incredible to be able to do a gig like this, I can tell you. I wish I was there in person, but until things get better with all this COVID stuff, I guess this is the way we're going to have to do it. Congratulations to all the winners. You should be very, very proud of your achievements, and like I say, making your communities proud of what you've done in your own town. Here's a song called Take a Walk in My Country. And when I wrote this tune, it reminded me of how lucky I am to walk on different sorts of parts of our land, wherever we come from. I get a chance to do that as part of my job. It's been really, really a privilege to play country music and to be able to travel and meet people all over the place. So that's what this song's written about. Take a step away from the daily grind. Come and get a little sunshine. If you want to feel wild and free, take a walk in my country. Lose a little time on an endless beach, leaving memories behind you. Cast your troubles in the deep blue sea. Take a walk in my country. Come away on eagle's wings. Come away, yeah, where the dreamtime sings. Brothers and sisters, you and me. Take a walk in my country, yeah. Listen to the wind on the Spinifex plains. Gentle voices will guide you. Get a little red dirt all over your feet. Take a walk in my country. Come away on eagle's wings. Come away, yeah, where the dreamtime sings. Brothers and sisters, you and me. Take a walk in my country. Come on. Yeah, take a walk down. If you want to feel wild and free, take a walk in my country. Come away on eagle's wings. Come away, yeah, where the dreamtime sings. Brothers and sisters, you and me. Take a walk in my country. Take a walk in my country, yeah, yeah. Yeah, take a walk down. Enjoy your night. Congratulations to all the winners. Thanks for having me at the QRC Indigenous Awards. Lots of love from Troy Casadale.
Thank you again, Troy. It's been great having you on board for the awards this year. Now I would like to welcome Brent Gunther, Chair of the Queensland Resources Council Board, to provide the vote of thanks.
On behalf of the Queensland Resources Council, I would like to thank our sponsors, speakers, and particularly our outstanding finalists who have demonstrated the high standard of work that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people bring to our resources sector in Queensland. Thank you for sharing your stories and achievements with us this afternoon. You are great ambassadors, role models, and inspiration to people following in your footsteps. The purpose of this event is to recognise excellence in the Queensland resources sector. And whether you're a finalist or not, each of the candidates we considered was of an exceptionally high standard. These awards highlight the contribution of Indigenous people to our sector and the community. And as our resources sector contributed a record $82.6 billion to the Queensland economy in the past financial year, it's important to recognise the role Indigenous Queenslanders play in that. I'm proud to be able to boast that our resources sector employs a higher proportion of Indigenous people than any other industry in Queensland. Partnerships between Indigenous communities and resource sector operations continue to model best practice for the rest of the country. I hope you've enjoyed hearing the stories of our finalists. And while we aren't able to say hello to them in person, we have the next best thing on the REMO platform where you can network in small groups. Please stay and chat. I certainly will. I look forward to virtually seeing you all there. For those of you who have been participating via YouTube and Facebook, the live streaming will now conclude. Thank you again for joining in and have a great week.
On behalf of the Queensland Resources Council, I'd like to thank our sponsors, speakers, and particularly our outstanding finalists who have demonstrated the high standard of work that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people bring to our resources sector in Queensland. Thank you for sharing your stories and achievements with us this afternoon. You are great ambassadors, role models, and an inspiration to people following in your footsteps. The purpose of this event is to recognise excellence in the Queensland resources sector, and whether you're a finalist or not, each of the candidates we considered was of an exceptionally high standard. These awards highlight the contribution of Indigenous people to our sector and to the community. And as our resources sector contributed a record $82.6 billion to the Queensland economy in the past financial year, it's important to recognise the role Indigenous Queenslanders play in that. I'm very proud to be able to boast that our resources sector employs a higher proportion of Indigenous people than any other industry sector in Queensland. Partnerships between Indigenous communities and the resource sector operations continue to model best practice for the rest of the country. I hope you've enjoyed hearing the stories of our finalists tonight. And while we aren't able to say hello to them in person, we have the next best thing on the REMO platform, where you all can network in small groups. Please stay and chat. I certainly will be. I'm an old hand, having had a great time on the platform at the launch of our QRC YMAC Girls Mentoring Program earlier in the year. Trust me, it's great. I look forward to virtually seeing you all there.
Evolution would like to join in Ian's thanks of everyone who helped to make this afternoon go so smoothly. We're pleased to be able to sponsor the networking event today, and we think it is important that as an industry we continue to work alongside our traditional custodians and Indigenous workforce to guide our Indigenous participation journey. These events give us a platform to continue the discussions on how we are working together to create workplaces that are informed, inclusive and empowered to advocate for cultural recognition. Congratulations to the QRC for providing the platform to continue these discussions and to celebrate the successes of individuals and business. We hope that you have enjoyed the event so far, and we welcome you to the post-event REMO session. If you have registered for the session, you will now be able to chat with other participants on the REMO platform. The networking tables are now open, and it is with pleasure that I hand back to our MC, Charmaine, to open the session.
Welcome to everyone to this virtual networking session following the QRC Indigenous Awards for 2020. And what a year it was. There are 3 segments to this 40-minute networking session. For now, please feel free to mingle across the table and chat virtually with fellow industry folk for the next 15 minutes or so. If you need a refresher on how this platform works, feel free to watch the video on the left of your screen for more instructions. Don't forget you can move from table to table, so please enjoy.